This is Max Cavalera, and you're geeking out with Gear Gods. Stay metal. Ah! Return to Roots. We are in the Regent Theater in Los Angeles. See, Roots was recorded at Indigo Ranch, and the owner, Richard, he passed away, but he had a massive collection of vintage gear. So a lot of the stuff you hear on Roots was recorded on this vintage gear. So I think was, as far as I remember, it was there was some Vox stuff that we used for amplifier. There was some Marshall stuff, some old cabinets, like old Marshall cabinets. I think a Marshall 69 was used for the guitar on the record. At that time, I was on the transition period. I think I was still with BC Rich at that time. Between BC Rich and Gibson, and looking forward to start working with ESP guitars, which I am now, and right now I use a lot of PV amplification. The cabinets and the amplifiers are all PV. Everything I use is PV, which is great. I love the stuff, and I've been using ESP guitars. I got my own design, the Reaper 1. Was designed earlier this year, and it came out really great. It's my own design. It's a combination between an Explorer and a Warlock. If those two, my explanation for it is if those two had sex, had fuck, and had a baby, that's what it would look like is my guitar. So it's the bastard son of a Warlock and Explorer is the Reaper, which sounds cool even like that. They even had a good name for it. So yeah, like a lot of the stuff on the Roots that you hear, there was a lot of pedals, Big Muff, and MXR. There's some homemade pedals that the owner had built it himself. That we use in a lot of parts of Roots, a lot of different parts, especially songs like Endangered Species and some of the heavier stuff on Roots like Cutthroat. Look Away has this kind of like real nasty. I think that was a homemade pedal that we used that quite a lot. We tried to buy it from he wouldn't sell it. The same with the mic. There's a microphone that I sang on it. It was from a submarine. It's a Battleship mic. And I did all my distortion vocals on Roots on this mic. We call it the Battleship mic. And I tried to buy it after the album was done, but he would not part way with anything, which is kind of cool. It's like, a collector, a lot of vintage stuff, but I'm very happy. I think that the PV translates great, the sound. It's a very similar sound that we achieve now with PV to what you hear on the Roots record. Is very, very similar.
Which PV amp are you using?
Right now, I'm going with the 3-axis, which is great. It's triple X is my favorite. Probably they made a special one for me, which is Camouflage, which is awesome, and I love everything Camouflage, as you can see. I have Camouflage guitars, Camouflage pants, So the triple X is like my favorite right now, is what I'm using, and they actually got a new one. I forgot the name of it, but it's a small one that you can put in a bag and carry everywhere, which I'm gonna start using next year. It's like a little version that you can carry with you everywhere you go. So when we go to Europe or South America, I have one in my bag. I can just bring that and have a killer sound everywhere you go. The distortion comes from the PV, so that's the triple X distortion. I don't need anything for that. I use two Boss pedals that I've been used forever, which is the Ottawa, which I don't think you can buy it anymore. From what I heard, they don't make them anymore, and a flanger, a green flanger, and that's just for different parts of songs like Stray Hate, Look Away, little part of Ambush, kind of like the trippy parts of some of the songs. I put some flanger on it, some wow on it. Sounds really cool. Some very ambient kind of stuff. But I mostly go for the heavy sound of the PV, which I like a lot, and I love feedback. So the triple X has a nice feedback on it that you don't have to do much. You just touch the guitar, it will start ringing immediately, which is really cool. I love that about the PV. There's a white one. I think there's a white one, which is the cheaper model, which is not signature series, and then the signature series is more expensive, of course, and that's I think a camouflage one, urban camouflage. Um, but I sat down with Chris Canella from ESP, and we both designed it together, and it's really cool because I think it's got a lot of my personality, because I love the Explorer and I love the Warlock, and a lot of people remember me from the Sepultura days was by playing so much of the Warlock, the white Warlock with the discharge sticker on it. That was like kind of like my trademark. So I always wanted to have my own guitar, my own design. So we start talking, and the idea came true, and it was great. And I decided to call it Reaper One, which is a military term that they use, and I can now do Reaper 2, Reaper 3, every 2-3 years, come up with a little bit different design, But I'm very happy with this one. I think it's really awesome, feels really good, plays really good, and still with 4 strings. Well, Roots has 2 tunings. B, which is the most of the stuff is on, and then there's some stuff that's in D, which was the Chaos AD tune. The most of the songs were on Chaos, was in D. So what we do is we have 2 guitars, one tuned to A and D, but I don't even use the A because there's no songs in A. Soulfly has songs in A, but not this, not Return to Roots. And there's another guitar tuned to B and E, which is we also don't use the E very much, unless we play older Sepultura stuff like Arise, which we're not doing on this tour. So mostly on this tour, the majority of the song, I'll say 70%, attuned to B, which was like the main tune of the Roots record, and the rest of it is D, which is still pretty heavy, but B is really really super cool and heavy, and a lot of low end, a lot of like real aggressive sounding tuning for this kind of music. Yeah, I think it's better now, because I think was when we were doing the rec, we really didn't know exactly what we were doing. You're just in the studio, just trying to make the best record possible, and we weren't thinking we were making a classic, anything like that at all. None of that even ever crossed our mind. We just want to make a good record, just like the best we can make right now is what we're here for. But now, 20 years later, I get the chance to dissect the album again, which I had to do it for this tour because we were playing everything. We're playing every single note of the whole record. For the first part of the show is the entire Roots album, note by note. It really gave me a different idea of how deep the record is and how really cool the record is. This is actually there's a lot of cool stuff on Roots that I didn't realize we were doing back then. Kind of like punk influence stuff that I think Roots was kind of like a back to the simplicity kind of vibe. Everything more simplified, minimalistic kind of songs, stuff like Spit, Cutthroat, Roots, Bloody Roots. It's almost like the same riff over and over. Is everything simple. There's no complication, not complicated stuff. Very direct, very aggressive, very in your face. And then there is experimental stuff when you talk to songs like Stray Hate, had a long intro of drums, tribal drums with dissonant guitars, feedback. Um, and then, of course, there's the tribal stuff, Rata Mahata, which is like a lot of Brazilian rhythms. And um, we incorporate a lot of the drums in some of the songs like Ambush and Endangered Species. And then there's a tribal song, Itzario, recorded with the natives, Chavantes in Brazil. So it's a very fun record to play. I think now is even better than it was on the Roots tour, because not even in the Roots tour we play all the stuff that we're playing now. So this is a real opportunity to really play the whole record for the fans like it's never done before. It's cool, man. I think the best thing about Roots was the kind of encouragement they gave metal, other people in different parts of the world. I think it was like the original Seed kind of record that told everybody it's okay to do something like that in metal. Metal doesn't need to be the same stuff. We can do something different with metal. Metal can be different. We can have different stuff in it. We did it with our Brazilian roots, South American roots, but I think it translated into Norway. I think they picked up the idea of roots with stuff like Immortal and Enslaved, combining their original roots of Viking roots, translated really good, and a lot of awesome stuff came out of that, which I think is like the idea of roots gave birth to all kinds of stuff like that. And Melakash in the Middle East, and then I think roots even influenced stuff like System of a Down and Slipknot were influenced by roots. So I think it's a very it's an album that it didn't just influence one genre of metal. It influenced different areas of metal, all the way from new metal to black metal, and I think that's I'm very proud of that.
Giving you some insight on how I use speakers and how I do my monitoring while I'm mixing. Basically, my philosophy is somebody with one watch always knows what time it is. Somebody with two watches is never sure. Meaning, you have